So with no further ado, I'm going to hand over now to Mena to tell us about financial neutrals. Thank you, Mena.
Thank you, Reese. So I'm going to talk about financial information assessment meetings, or FIAMS, and you may or may not have heard about these before. This idea of using financial neutral is not new. There are lots of you who will already be regularly using financial neutral in the context of collaborative law. The idea that I have had with a number of other specialist collaborative lawyers, mediators, financial neutrals, is to find a system that can be used quite easily for financial neutrals themselves, and we all know that there aren't enough of those who specialise in pensions who will be able to step in and help us when we need them, and a kind of referral route from solicitors, barristers, mediators to that financial neutral, so that we all know exactly what it is we're expecting from each other, how we can sell it to the clients, how we can say to the clients this is going to be in your best interests, and to understand for ourselves whether or not it is in the client's best interest. So we've banded all of those ideas under the banner of the Financial Information Assessment Meeting. You may have heard me talk at other conferences about FIAMS, the Pensions Information Assessment Meeting. This is an evolution from FIAMS. So we started off by thinking that maybe you would go to the financial neutral only to talk about pensions, and of course that's as a result of my involvement in the pension advisory group, as Reese just mentioned. We then realised that actually there are lots of other things that a financial neutral could really assist a couple with right at the beginning, so near the MIAMS, near the Mediation Information Assessment Meeting, that would really cut down on quite a lot of guesswork that practitioners do. And as solicitors, legal executives, paralegals, trainees, there's quite a lot of knowledge gap when it comes to financial products that actually the financial neutral will know about, and will cut out some later sort of guesswork that perhaps we're doing. So the idea is that the solicitor, barrister, mediator will refer the couple to a financial neutral, and that is that I think the first hurdle is finding someone who will be able to assist. We have put together a website which is fiams.co.uk, and we should have on there a number of ways that you can decipher who to refer work to, and there is a very similar competence statement that we're putting together with the help of some really fantastic financial neutrals, so that a financial neutral who you may not have heard of could sign a competence statement which is available on the FIAMS website to say, actually I know how to do this work. Because what you don't want is just a IFA, a financial planner who maybe would like to do this work but doesn't have any experience of it, because then you could find yourself spending quite a long time, as I have in the past, explaining the divorce process, the financial relief process, to somebody else, getting them up to speed when actually they have no practical experience, which can be just as dangerous as you or I, as sort of unfamiliar financial people dealing with these things. When you send the parties to the financial neutral, the idea is that either the mediator will already have some disclosure that they've already collated, or the financial neutral can collate that information. And I think that therein lies an additional assistance for the couple, is that they've both got a fair amount of joint information, we assume, and some other information that they may have lying around they may or may not understand. The financial neutral can very easily collate that information. So it depends on who's referring. If it's the parties could even self-refer if they wanted to, and so it's something the financial neutral can do very easily, is put together like an open statement, very similar to a mediator's open statement, rather than going through the rigmarole of doing this at mediation or doing it with a solicitor, if it's something that can be done together. And it follows fairly similarly the collaborative model, or the way that the collaborative practitioners deal with things. The financial neutral will meet with the couple, and of course in the current climate it would be through a digital medium, but actually a lot of mediators have said that they find a digital medium works so much better for mediation, and actually the ability to record that meeting with a financial neutral, all of which is open. So unlike mediation, there are no negotiations, there's no without prejudice discussion. It is all disclosure, and once the disclosure is complete, the financial neutral explaining to the couple, this is what this life policy is for, it's very valuable, this is what this critical illness is, etc., and explaining to the parties why perhaps as sometimes the inclination is, to just cancel direct debits might not be a good idea at the start of the process, because what we can sometimes find is at the end of the process you might need a financial product, perhaps something to cover a maintenance order, and the parties will say, oh, we had something like that, but we cancelled it 7 months ago when we were at the beginning of the case because we just didn't think we needed it. And so it's to prevent the parties from making financial decisions that actually we as lawyers are just not qualified to assist them with. We can't give financial advice, and sometimes the parties are floundering and will just make decisions that are later on going to turn out to be wrong decisions. The financial neutral can then explain options. So what are the options with regards to pensions and other financial products? Focusing probably more so on the pensions than anything else. So what you do need is you need somebody who's familiar with the pension advisory group report recommendations, the case law, perhaps, and understanding what it is that solicitors don't know. So, defined contribution pensions, defined benefit pensions, public sector, all the different types of pensions there are, and saying to the parties, well, actually, you would like to do this with your pension, you can do that. Recently, I was talking to a solicitor who was talking about a FIRB and saying that one of the solicitors thought it was a pension and the other solicitor was saying it wasn't a pension at all and you couldn't pension share it. You don't have to debate those things if you've got the financial neutral involved right from the outset, because a financial neutral will say to the parties and to the solicitors, this is a pension, it is shareable, here are the problems, or here is what I can foresee as being a problem, and these are your options. So you could offset it, you could pension share it, and it really does cut out huge layers, I think, of correspondence between solicitors about what they think something is, having had no training or knowledge, and the real danger is that we won't spot it at all. So we won't spot that we've made a mistake or we have assumptions. And as one of our members of Pension Advisory Group says quite often, George Matheson will say, you don't know what you don't know, and therein lies the real danger. And so the benefit of using a financial neutral is that they know what you don't know, and so they should be able to fill in those huge gaps. That financial neutral should also be able to advise whether or not you need a pension on divorce export report. It's a bit of a mouthful, and possibly help to draft that single joint letter of instruction. Again, the PAG report has a specimen letter which is fit for purpose. A financial neutral can really help to complete that, to send it to the solicitors and onward transmission to a POD, and or depending on who your financial neutral is, it might be somebody who could also then step into the role of writing that report as a neutral person, because they've not given advice to either party, they've not been privy to any of the negotiations, they're just writing that factual report. So of course it's up to the parties and the solicitors whether they want to take that choice. Even most financial neutrals don't do report writing anyway, they're sort of fairly distinct skills. The parties then return to their solicitor, barrister, mediator and continue negotiation. So this is very much an out of court process, and of course we'll all be aware that we're trying to keep out of court as much as possible. Is it just another acronym? Do we need something else? Is there a gap? So we have to recognise that lawyers are not financial advisors, and we are not qualified to do that. We don't really understand pensions. With the best will in the world, the Pension Advisory Group report is fantastic, but it doesn't make us financial advisors. And so we really need to recognise what we don't know. We don't know financial products. We don't understand pensions as well as financial neutrals, and so that is something that we need to bear in mind. Who will conduct the FIAM? I've already said a financial neutral who would be an independent financial advisor, financial planner, but somebody who really understands the divorce and financial remedy process, who could possibly act in a POD capacity if pensions are involved. Do we need to pay for somebody else? Well, I mean, if you think about the correspondence exchanges that you can have with solicitors about what you think a financial product is, or how you think a particular pension works, or what you think you can do with it, it would be so much easier, and of course would protect us from potential negligence claims if somebody said to us, this is the financial information you need, these are all of your options, here's the information from the beginning, now you can go away and decide how you want to negotiate it. So it lifts a burden by having another professional with hopefully another insurance policy that can be claimed against, who's feeding into the process. So it makes a lot more sense to sort of tip it on its head and have the financial neutral first. So what does the financial neutral do? These people already exist. They're already working with clients and with solicitors. They accept instructions from both parties. They act in a neutral capacity, so they are impartial. They will declare any conflicts of interest. They will charge for the FIAMS on a fee basis and not in anticipation of work. And this is, you know, a best practice guide from collaborative work, really. They assist the parties to draft a letter of instruction, so you know could cut down the time it takes to narrow the issues, for example. Acts as a single joint expert if the parties are agreeable, as I've said, and perhaps accept work to implement pension sharing orders, but only if both parties consent. So otherwise they are entirely neutral throughout the process. They're not hanging on in there and making recommendations on the basis that they're going to have money to invest at the end of the day, or there's something in it for them. They're only doing it on a fee paid basis, and I think that's really important. The financial neutral does not give advice that benefits one party. They don't have conversations with one party without the other knowing, and that's really important from a single joint expert PODE point of view. And they don't do anything that disrupts the parties' negotiations or process. And what we're doing, our sort of informal FIAMS group, we're putting together some training videos that will be freely available for financial neutrals and solicitors, barristers, mediators, so that if you're not sure about how to do something, there's a free to access video and you can have a look at what's expected. Potential benefits, I think I've covered most of these already, but the parties really need to understand the finances in the same way from the same source, so it's particularly useful for a financially weaker spouse. They can ask those questions together. You know, my financial advisor says I don't have to pay capital gains tax on Y. My financial advisor says you're going to have to pay tax unless we do this. The information coming from one source is going to be really important. Obviously, it's going to be cheaper to use one financial neutral than use two financial advisors for each party. It should empower the parties to negotiate realistically. How many times have I had a client who said, I just don't know what to do, let the court decide? Well, I mean, these days that's not really a viable option. So and of course the parties should easily implement an order, and I know we're going on to talk about implementation, but it's much easier if you commit to an agreement rather than have something imposed upon you, and it relieves us of the burden of explaining finances badly, so it puts that burden on the financial neutral, and it eliminates that problem of lawyers, mediators not understanding the trickier aspects and not knowing that they don't understand. So that problem of not knowing what you don't know, the financial neutral can go off and obtain further information that might be needed in the single joint letter of instruction. Got a bad tickle in your throat, Reese.
Sorry.
That's all right. And it's important that the information that the PODE, the single joint expert, might need is readily available, and it takes time. That's what takes the most time when getting a single joint expert's report, is getting the information. So actually a financial neutral can start that process off way before we even know that that information is needed. And they draft the letter of instruction and they can make it realistic, and hopefully then implementation is likely, hopefully, to be trouble-free. So there are lots of benefits I can see where we can work together with a financial neutral to make life easier for us, for the single joint expert, to cut out some of that insane waiting time, waiting for pension trustees to come back to us with information that the PODE might need. So I think there are lots of benefits of doing this, and definitely we'd be encouraging people to think about using this, and that's why we've set up the FIAMS website, to encourage people to think about approaching these fairly complicated areas from a different angle.